Greetings, YouTube. It's your buddy Choppadong. I am coming at you with week 3 box checkers. We're going to do the running backs and the quarterbacks today and I'll show you how quickly you can pare down a player pool that is competitive and has the historical odds set up for it to hit its value, depending on the price points, of course, of these players. But oftentimes I get asked inside DFS Army and out here on Twitter and everywhere else um, how to kind of begin a research process. And this is what I would tell you. Number one, start knocking down your player pool, trim the fat, cut the fluff with the best chances of players that hit value, and then start making your adjustments from there. Do you actually like that player? Do you actually like a player who maybe isn't checking all of those boxes, but somebody that you like anyway? But generally speaking, you want to give the most weight to this portion right here. And we'll discuss a couple, especially one in mind when we get to the quarterbacks. Um, but it's just a fast way to do it. And then from there, you might go to our coaching notes at DFS Army. You might go out to other sources, whatever it is that you plan on doing on a routine basis, and start verifying your picks and start seeing how much somebody agrees with you or how much somebody might announce another position that didn't pop up on your initial sheet. And then maybe you make some adjustments and you go from there. But the bottom line is you're starting with a foundation of strength that typically is going to put you in the best position to safely hit value. And that's where you start all of your researches. Let's figure out who the safest plays are. Let's figure out who the chalky plays are. And now let's start figuring out some pivots. So if we have some time, we'll dip into that a little bit today as we walk through the slates too, because there are obviously some great pivots out there today. And another one on the quarterbacks page that I'm probably most interested in as the slate goes on or as the research goes on. Somebody that I think might generate a fair amount of leverage for you this week if things go, according to plan. Now, if you don't know me, I'm Choppadong. I'm editor of content here at dfsarmy.com, and of course, using the coupon code CHOP down there in the comments section, CHOP, triggers 20% off discount every single month that you remain a member. And really, we're a tools site and a content site. Of course, you're seeing a lot of that. In fact, you can check out our newest article here, Onslaught Stacks by CG. But really and truly, we're a coaching site. We explain to you how to use those tools. There are a lot of sites out there that talk to you about using this tool or that tool, but then where do you go for answers? You might go to an old-fashioned forum, you might go somewhere else, but your actual accessibility to the big name players, the big name experts on those sites is crap. You don't actually get to talk to any of those people. At DFS Army, you actually do get to talk to those people. Our lead coaches are very active inside our coaching forums. I am very active inside our coaching forums. We are our job. We realize that the foundation of our community is built on coaching. That's where we got our start, and we're never going to let that principle go. We only do better when you do better because then you tell the world that we actually helped you out, and then everybody that wants help follows suit, and that's how we grow. Anywho, let's dive in and let's talk a little bit about the research station here. This is the #1 tool that I use when it comes to my research. I go under the NFL tab. I come down here to research station, kick open the FanDuel or the DraftKings tab. I always operate off the FanDuel one for NFL, at least initially, because everybody else talks about DraftKings, so I talk about FanDuel. So, all right, I'm not just the chalk eater, man. I'm a little contrarian, right? Got the running backs tab pulled up here. Got the main slate turned on, so the 8 p.m. games are off. And the first thing we're going to look for in our box checkers page here with running backs, home favored, 18 plus touches, targets or carries, red zone and third down work. And what I'm going to explain to you, simply stated, is not all touches are created equal. Just a volume of 20 plus touches doesn't matter. How'd Leonard Fournette do? Dude gets 20 touches or so each and every time, but he's an average runner. You want the high quality touches. Sadly, he gets high quality touches too. But you want the high quality touches. You want those inside the 10-yard line. You want those receptions in third down work. You want the goal line work. You don't need it on your own 20. That doesn't do you a hell of a lot of good unless you break an 80-yard run like a Dalvin Cook can do. But generally speaking, 70 some odd, I think it's 75% of the running back touches are relatively trivial. There's an article, gosh, I don't even know who the guy was. No, that's really bad of me, but search TRAP touches or something like that. CBS Sportsline is where the article came from. It was a great article. And the author was talking about 75% almost of the touches are outside of the 10-yard line or they're not receptions inside the daily fantasy scoring environment. And they only generate about 40 some odd percent of the fantasy points. Instead, if you're inside the 10 and you're getting receiving work, you get 24 or something percent of the touches, or 24%, yeah, I guess of the touches of a running back, but that leads to over 55, 56% of the fantasy points. So stick with the efficient crap, man. Let's not overthink this. I don't need the running back. You know the old Mark Ingram role in New Orleans where he got all the touches kind of between the 20s, but then Alvin Kamara came in when it was important. Or you can come up with, and that's not the best example, but you can come up with plenty of examples of the empty down back, and that's not the guy that we want. We want the guy who's on the goal line because that's especially on FanDuel where touchdowns are weighted more than on DraftKings because DraftKings weights receptions more. So the first thing I'm going to do is search for those home favored and implied to score points running backs. So I'm going to slide over to the Vegas section and do what I always do. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to filter out. And yes, I'm going to miss a few of these guys, but I'm going to filter out less than 0 because that's automatically going to give me the favorites. Then I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to take the team total and I'm going to sort out greater than 24. And now I've got the high team totals that are favored. And that's what I care about. I would ideally like them at home, but this is my general list of names. Now I can start paring them down a little bit more if I want to, but this generally gets me where I'm going. I see the only one on the road is Christian McCaffrey, who I think has a fine floor. I think everybody would tell you he has a fine floor. He's going to be used a lot, especially perhaps with a backup quarterback taking all of the snaps out there in Arizona. But there is a chance that that guy gets leaned on to throw the ball, and because Arizona has a weak secondary. So if he's not doing a bunch of dump offs to McCaffrey, and instead it's a DJ Moore or a Curtis Samuel week, which wouldn't be out, or they fall behind in the game, and he needs to gain some more yardage, then Christian McCaffrey gets phased out a little bit. You might say, hey, man, I've never seen Christian McCaffrey get phased out of a game. And I would say, did you watch week 2 on Thursday night? It happens. Everyone, it's not a very high possibility, but it does happen. And being on the road, the likelihood is there that it could happen. Typically, the road running backs don't hit value as often as the home backs. Doesn't mean McCaffrey's not playable. I've probably got him in my own cash lineup. I think his floor's that high, and his ceiling is, of course, through the roof. But Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, even Chris Carson, Marlon Mack, if he practices, well, he is practicing today. If he seems like he's going to suit up and be ready to go, depending on how severe that calf issue is. Sony Michel, probably not. Typically don't trust New England Patriots running backs. However, if you want to go back to that trap article I told you to go look up out on CBS Sportsline, I would tell you that Sony Michel does get goal line work, but he gets a lot of work between the 20s outside the red zone. In a lot of cases, inside the red zone or inside the 10, who gets the receptions and the touches? In a lot of cases, it's James White. If you look that number up, you'll find James White's been leading the league in that particular statistic for the last 4 years. Very consistent, very underutilized, very under what's the word? Not under owned kind of guy, but he really doesn't get. He's more of a steady producer than people think. And that's a good thing because it keeps his price down low. But we look at Damian Williams, who's been declared out. And so that brings up backup situations from Darwin, what's his name, all the way down to maybe a little Sean McCoy type that are going to get more of the run, and they're going to be priced like true backups. And so there's value there. Breida, White, there's James White right there, 6,200 over. Now, I know it's a Sony Michel week at 6,800, but 6,200 is not bad for a pass catching back. I would save it for more competitive endeavors instead of these great big blowouts. But that said, James White's still a nice little tournament play. If I'm looking for guys that might end up really, like how would you do some kind of a tournament narrative? Instead of Ezekiel Elliott, you'd say that maybe Dak and Amari Cooper or Dak and Jason Witten or the third receiver out there or something are the play as opposed to Ezekiel Elliott because everybody's going to be on Zeke. You might say Dalvin Cook is going to be 2 weeks in a row. Dalvin Cook's been hogging all the snaps and all the work. Well, eventually Kirk Cousins and those receivers are going to bust out. Could it be this week where they decide to surprise Oakland and try and score quick? Now, maybe their philosophy has completely changed. And in evidence so far this year would tell you it's going to be a Dalvin Cook week. But sometimes coaches outthink themselves. And if they do, then there's your pivot. So those are a couple of ways to start thinking of pivots. Austin Eckler, Chris Carson, again, Mac Jones. Scroll down a little bit here, and we're dealing with guys that aren't necessarily getting a ton of touches in their offenses. So we would want to scroll over this way and look in 2019, who's getting the touches. If I take the rush attempts and the receptions, and start filtering them out, that would be a good thing. But I could also go over here to the red zone section and see what the inside the 10-yard rushing attempts are. Who's actually getting that work? And it does look like Sony Michel's getting used an awful lot. Granted, they're coming off of a stint with Miami. But we come down here to, say a few of these touches, these top 5 guys. Michel, Eckler, McCaffrey, Zeke. Ooh, Frank Gore in Buffalo. There's an interesting pick now. Because he's on the list. They're home, they're favored, and they're implied to score over 24 points. How about that? There's a sneaky little play. Now, I don't think that he's getting a ton of touches per game. If we come back over here and take a peek at that section, we go over to the 2019 stat set, rush attempts per game for Frank Gore, 15. And maybe 1 reception. That's 16 touches for the wholesale price of $5,700. With Singletary out, Frank Gore's probably in play based on this sheet. And he doesn't have to do what these guys have to do to hit value. He's only got to hit about 15 points. Get in the end zone and go for about 60 yards, you're almost there. See what I'm saying? That's how you can use this sheet to filter through those. Now, how would we use the quarterbacks? We do the same thing. We consult our little page here, and we say home favorite over 24 points. 26 points is even better, and top 10 in QBR. For QBR, you're going to have to go to ESPN.com or Google or something and Google total QBR. And you'll see some of those guys in the top 10. That's an arbitrary number. That's not an actual inflection point that's backed by historical data. I'm just saying I don't want just the top half of the guys. I want guys that are a little bit better than that. So I took the top third, and that makes it a top 10 guy. So if you're in the top 10 in total QBR, then I would consider you an efficient quarterback. And we all know by now, efficient quarterbacks are more important or more correlated to fantasy scoring than high volume throwers. I mean, volume's nice, but efficiency is better. Okay, you add the volume of a Patrick Mahomes in there with the efficiency of a Patrick Mahomes, and you got a world beater. But generally speaking, we would want to put more weight on efficiency than just pure volume. So if I'm going to be looking for home favored quarterbacks that are implied to score over 24 and hopefully over 26 points, I have to set it up the same way, right? And guys, this routine's not changing. We're going to be doing this in week 10 just like we're doing it now in week 3. Implied to score over 24 points, so greater than. We'll do 23.5 on this one. Doesn't really matter. It just includes the 24 versus the 24 and a halves. Okay, so now here's what I'm sitting here looking at. And I'd really rather see the guys way at the top. I'm not concerned about blowouts because guys get their points. Yes, they get taken out of the game sometimes. Yes, they hand the ball over to a clock grinding running back sometimes. But a lot of times, this is a throwing league. You know, 2/3 or 3/4 of your touchdowns come from passing the ball these days. So they're going to throw the ball still. They're going to at least do that in the first or second quarter. And they're going to eat. That's how they create those blowouts. So I'm going to look over here at Dak Prescott, perhaps, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Jameis Winston's in another good spot. Do you trust him off of that week 1 that he had? Carson Wentz with all of his dinged up receivers. Can he still be Carson Wentz, or are those receivers not going to be able to get open? See, these are question marks that might take them out of cash consideration for me, but not tourney consideration. Kirk Cousins hasn't been throwing the ball much this year. He probably not that efficient either if you go look up the QBR. Phillip Rivers probably is relatively efficient. Josh Allen. These types of names. Now, at home, I guess not implied to score 25 points, but Kyler Murray would be one that I see is not on the list that I'd be looking for. Road quarterbacks I'll get to in a minute, because the quarterback I wanted to mention that may or may not fall on that cash safe type list is Carson Wentz with all of those injury issues. Maybe they lean on the run a little bit more. Maybe, those guys can't get open, whatever. And it increases the likelihood that Carson Wentz does not have his best day. He probably still has a very secure floor. He's probably going to dump the ball up to Ertz a ton. But he might not have that ceiling game because he doesn't have the talent level he's accustomed to. So that I would be very, very careful of. And on the flip side of that game, the quarterback that I'm watching the most, I believe that game's a sneaky shootout. It's probably not even that sneaky anymore. On Tuesday, it was sneaky, but too many people have been talking about it. But the more you think about it, the Eagles are attackable through the air. They're good against the run. They're attackable through the air. So how is Detroit going to win that game if they're going to win? Well, Philadelphia disappoints by not having the talent on the field that they're used to having. Detroit comes in with a game plan to attack through the air and has a good day. And if that happens, Kenny Golladay is a great one to run the game back with. So while everybody else focuses on that, I'd be watching ownership reports for what Kenny Galladay's price or what his ownership levels would be, and I'd be looking at Marvin Jones or Hawkinson again, right? That's who I'd be looking for in tournaments. And I'd stack them with Matt Stafford. I still get access to the Kenny Golladay a day. If he has a pretty good day, I've still got access to it. But I'd be running out some MJJ or maybe some Hawkinson or maybe double stacking it. And instead of what everybody else is going to do, which is take the favorite and take Carson Wentz with Nelson Aguilar and Zach Ertz and run it back with Golladay, I would probably take at least a lineup or two of Matt Stafford, Hawkinson, Marvin Jones, or Golladay, either one, but then run it back with an Aguilar or whoever the other two guys are, or Ertz, and go double tight end in your lineup. Something like that would be what I would be considering, because that's going to get me same exposure to the game that everybody else loves. And if the game goes off, it's just a matter of who gets the love. If your guys get the love, okay, c'est la vie. But at lower ownership, if my guys get the love, I'm going to blow past all you turkeys on the leaderboards. That's how you leverage that GPP. And you can see the GPP leverage ranking here. And I'll turn the filters off here in just a second. But these are the guys that we're typically looking at for this week. And I'm talking more cash games now. I was talking tournament narrative for a second, but more cash games now. I don't know that you can pay up for a Patrick Mahomes. If you want to, go for it. He's by far got the highest floor on the slate, but he's probably got one of the higher ceilings on the slate. But if he hits his ceiling of 40 points or so, and somebody like a Josh Allen hits 35 points, well, everyone's going to be saying Mahomes hit 40 again, but Josh Allen was actually the better points per dollar play. These guys that are a little bit cheaper generally have a little bit upside when it comes to points per dollar, and that's what's going to win you. As long as the rest of your plays do well too, that's what's going to win you your GPPs. You're getting more bang for your buck. It's like going into the grocery store with a $200 budget and coming out with $400 worth of groceries. That's better than if I just buy everything at retail and go in with a $200 budget and come out with $200 worth of groceries, right? That's how you have to be thinking about daily fantasy sports. You're always looking for stuff that's on sale. You're always looking for stuff that's at a discount that is set to outperform the way it's priced. Okay? So there's your list of quarterbacks, and I'd probably stick to just about, the top 3 or 4 of them. But it's not very often you're going to pay up for a running back. Most of the time, or a quarterback. Most of the time, you're going to pay down in here into the under $8,000 range. There is an inflection point under 8,500 typically hits value. Those over 8,500 typically don't hit value. But I'm not going to ever say Patrick Mahomes is not supposed to hit value this week, because the dude's been hitting it every week since he came into the league. Okay, so next thing's next. I already got myself a little bit sidetracked. I was thinking of something else, and now my mind has blanked. I was going to turn the filters off, and we were just going to run the leverage tool. So let me take the team totals off, and let me bring the underdogs back in. And then let's run over here, and let's sort by who has the most GPP leverage. You got ownership projections in here. You want to see who the chalk's going to be, you sort that by descending order, bang. Now, quarterback typically is not too chalky, right? That's not a chalky quarterback, really. They're all spread out, okay? But I would say that a lot of people are going to be running Kyler Murray in their cash games, and they're going to be running some Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. So you're going to be looking for ways to maybe get off of those guys in tournaments, and that would open up Jameis Winston, Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, whatever, pretty good tournament plays. Obviously, similar ceilings if they have a great day towards getting over, above, and beyond what some of those other QBs can do, and certainly at a price per dollar point. But then I'm looking at the leverage numbers here, the leverage factor. You don't have a lot of leverage with these quarterbacks because they're highly owned. So if I take that and I sort that off, let's see who gives us the most leverage this week, Mason Rudolph. Yeah, because nobody's going to be on him. But does he actually have a good matchup? Probably not. His rocket arm and his rating is, pretty low. But he's got a ton of leverage there. Look at Matt Stafford. Look at the leverage Matt Stafford has on the freaking field. Do you think the game could be a shootout? If you think the game could be a shootout, then that just makes stupid sense. Do you think it could be a Kirk Cousins day? They're going to go against the grain. What's more likely to happen? Matt Stafford shootout or Kirk Cousins suddenly starts throwing the ball? What's going to happen more often? Matt Stafford shootout or, Philip Rivers throws for 404 touchdowns? I mean, I can tell you which one's going to be most likely to happen. But if I'm looking at the Matt Stafford numbers here, I get excited about those. That just confirms what I was already thinking. Everybody's going to be focused on the Wentz and the Philadelphia side because of the value. They're going to completely ignore that this did not work for me last week. I thought the Rams and the Saints were going to shoot out in LA, and everyone was focused on Jared Goff. So I took Drew Brees, and well, dude got hurt in the first quarter. And then all my plans, I was 25% owned in my mass multi entries. And I got to be real honest with you, they all went to shit in a hurry. But that happens sometimes. I still got half my money back. I mean, half of my investment back. So I'll take that on a bad week. What I'm going to do this week is I'm going to go right back to the well and I'm going to load up on some Matt Stafford. I'm going to start looking at some of these other guys with some leverage. Probably won't have a lot of Mason Rudolph. That'd be really actually a Millie Maker type winner. Matt Ryan, I can see them getting into some kind of a shootout in Indianapolis. Would probably up my Matt Ryan shares. If he's sitting on about 2 or 3% ownership, I'd probably take 5 or 6% ownership on him. Get over the field. I think he's got. He might not have more than 2% chance to have the highest score on the entire slate. But Russell Wilson can play. Josh Allen. Look at the leverage Josh Allen is still giving you. I think that's outstanding. I think it's absolutely outstanding. Andy Dalton's sneaky if Buffalo collapses. I don't think a lot of us see that happening. But now you're getting down into here where your leverage starts to go away again. So this is just a brief way to handle some of these tools. This is brand new this week. The leverage and the ownership stuff is brand new. So get in here, get learning how to use this stuff, and make this week a winning week for you. Build around the ownership numbers for cash games. All right. If I go into the actual running back matchups, because they should be a little bit chalkier, right? I'm not as concerned about leverage there. I don't know what I'm going to get. I can do the leverage in my head, so you should be able to too. This just kind of confirms what you're already thinking. But if I come down in here into the ownership percentages, I swear I don't know why it just did the descending. Oh, because these two guys are out of nowhere. All right, so Ezekiel Elliott, chalk. That's going to be a cash game running back for you. Christian McCaffrey, if you can fit him in. Dalvin Cook, if you can fit him in. Austin Eckler, if you should probably have 3 of these 4 guys in your cash games. Number 1, you're insulated by the ownership. Number 2, they're in obviously good spots. Number 3, they're being used. They're home. They're favored, except for McCaffrey. They're home. They're favored. They're implied to score points. They get the workload on the goal line. They get receptions in the passing game. They're obvious choices. That's why they're chalky. Now, you might use 1 or so in tournaments. You want to build around a solid core of chalk anyway in a tournament lineup because you want to get close to the money just on having a smart lineup, and then use 1 or 2 low-owned plays. Maybe it's nobody in your running backs. Maybe you use all the chalky running backs and you get goofy in your tight ends and your wide receivers, and then stack them with a quarterback. And maybe that's where you get a little bit lower owned. Because that's how you're going to win those tournaments. The best analogy I ever heard was from a friend of mine, Daving Puggle, says, really and truly, building around a chalky core, gets you invited to the wedding dinner. But that one low-owned play that actually hits that day is what gets you sleeping with the bride. It's nice to be invited to the dinner. It's a heck of a story if you get to sleep with the bride. So build around that solid core. Get invited to a lot of dinners. And every once in a while, you might get to sleep with the bride. On that note, I'll wrap it up. I'll send us out of here on Friday for Week 3 NFL DFS, box checkers style. Come on back next week. If you don't see me this weekend, definitely come inside our coaching forums and start talking with us and the other coaches and get your lineups built right. And get your GPP lineups leveraging the field for your personal game. I'm editor of content, chopadongdfsarmy.com. The link is down there in the comment section. Of course, coupon code CHOP, CHOP, triggers 20% off. As always, like and subscribe to the video, ring the notification bell, follow me on Twitter, and hopefully I see you guys on top of the leaderboards. Take care.